I am very, very honored to have the opportunity to interview my next guest all the way from Melbourne, Australia, Melissa Griffiths. Such a courageous, resilient, and strong individual who is a transgender authority and advocate who lives in Melbourne. I was I just loved how you consulted the Cricket Australia in the development for their guidelines for
Yeah,
inclusion of gender diverse and transgenders in cricket. She's a recognized thought leader who speaks out and is a voice for those in her community who don't have a voice. I think many people, regardless of their beliefs, are fearful of speaking their truths, right, or even sharing
yeah,
opinions that are different. And then you also were recently the keynote speaker for International Women's Day, speaking about the organizational gender diversity and policy. But today, Melissa will be sharing about gender identity and how can we as a society support and the LGBTQIA community is often misunderstood
mm,
and not given the sense of belonging that they deserve. So thank you so much for this opportunity and go
uh,
for it.
thanks for having thanks for having me, Karen. It's probably quite a few years since I've spoken at RMIT about organisation gender diversity policy. That was like pre-COVID, but obviously the last couple of years having to do everything online and do everything from home. The world has changed. Like doing being part of a panel discussion for International Women's Day on Friday for Whiz Tracks. I did that. So a couple other people, Gemma Lloyd and Dr. Samantha Pillare. So yeah, it was interesting doing that sort of thing online. Yeah, and obviously with gender identity, it's a relatively new thing, and you'd probably be aware of all the issues going on in America around trying to stop children getting treatment for gender identity and appropriate medical treatment. So, whereas at least in Melbourne, they've got at the hospital, Melbourne Hospital, they've got people there obviously deal with that. So, they've got a particular unit, Royal Children's Hospital, so deal with it. So,
How do we educate people though? How do we get people to understand that it's nothing that, a person isn't broken, a person doesn't need to be fixed. I mean, to embrace who they are. How do we get parents to understand that it's unconditional love that's deserved and not judgment?
I think it's just trying to understand the child and just let them be a child. And if they're just exploring their gender, just let them do that. So if you want to wear a pink dress one day, just let them do it like the rest of the children before thinking about any sort of medical treatment or anything like that. So let them explore that side of themselves, and then hopefully the parents will begin to understand that's just maybe they are transgender, maybe they're not. It's just a phase they're going through, but just allow them to play and explore themselves. And you'll probably, most kids are pretty smart. They know whether they're trans or not from a pretty young age now, but just give them a breathing space. And I know that's hard for parents, but you just got to sometimes, unfortunately, let the kid be a kid and just go with the flow.
I love that. Give them breathing space. Were you, I know you're very vulnerable and courageous in sharing your own story. Were you given the opportunity to, have that breathing space and the opportunity to explore?
I guess when I was living part time, so I guess I was figuring myself out when I was living in Melbourne, dressed less back in Auckland, but when I was here, I had more opportunity to explore myself. And when I began transitioning to live full time, it was quite a hectic process, and there's always pressure to get things done quicker. So work just want to get it over and done with, whereas you're going through a life-changing process, I guess, and you've got to get the appropriate medical approval for hormones and change all your documents, which is like getting married or divorced. So, it's a big process, and I don't think people really fully understand what you have to go through
I
to
never
get
thought
everything.
of that. I never thought of that. That's why a lot of women keep their own name because it's just changing everything. And I never
Everything,
thought that
yeah, you
that would
don't realize,
apply
yeah,
to
that's right.
this.
And then go, oh, yeah, oh, damn, I haven't changed that, forget things, you know. You're
Yeah.
right.
Wow. So did you find a supportive tribe of people who would, who supported you during this journey?
I found a few people online, some people that supported me after I transitioned full time. People like Tracy Spicer started the Me Too movement in Australia. She supported me a lot, and I found a few other people to support me. Had some issues at work with questions around what bra size I'm going to be. Whether I'm going to be a B cup or a C cup, the usual things go around asking women in the workplace, not. But yeah, just apart from the inappropriate questions, and people probably just wanted me to get on with it. Some people at work, just living day to day is a big challenge early on. Like, you know, going to a bar and people don't like trans people, it's all new, or you're wearing a wig as it was in those days. So people feel uncomfortable, don't necessarily understand. So as
Well,
much.
maybe that's what it is, though. I mean, when you feel uncomfortable, you don't know how to respond, and then
That's right, yeah. So
right?
that person doesn't know how to respond, so they just give you a glare, and it's like, well, I don't want you in here, get out, because they don't know how to respond. So the automatic fear, anger comes out, and you think it's outside the box,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to know. So
Did you feel safe in the beginning, or even now?
sometimes, some places yes, some places not, and even now, so you've got to be careful where you go. I think still just got to. Most people are okay, but you still go to venues. You still get people staring or glaring at you or making smart ass comments. So.
Any advice for someone who is just about to embark in that? It does take a lot of courage to make that decision. What do you suggest to someone who's just starting their journey?
Take your time, don't rush. Speak to GP, speak to psychiatrists or psychologists. You know, if you've got a support group, if you're a teenager or an adult, uh, go to them as well. Just get all the advice and do it in your own time. Don't rush. If you're in the workplace, don't rush just because work wanted it over and done with. Because it suits them. Do it in your own time. Take some space for you.
Great advice. Well, for any of us who are even embarking on a change, I think some people just want
That's
to
right.
rush. I want to just get through
I want
it
to get
so
it
that it's,
done.
yeah, I want it
Done.
done. Well, because
I want
it's,
that new job.
yes, exactly. Well, because it's uncomfortable and it is
Yeah,
painful sometimes, but don't you think it is part of the journey? I mean, it's what builds
it is. Yes.
resilience, right?
It does. I mean, doing your research and things like that, things you might need to consider when you're changing job, or especially changing gender as well. You know, changing career. You know, just making sure you like changing career, you're the right cultural fit for that organisation, got the right skills, talent, or
Hmm.
capability to do the job, even if you don't have any skills. So, and yeah, so transitioning, you've got to think about whether it'll work in your workplace or if you don't think it will, then do you leave? You've got to weigh all those things up. So you can do your research and think about it and talk to
So I'm
HR.
sure, and the research is probably a little easier with technology rather than
It is
way
now.
back
Yeah.
when it was just
And
books
with,
or contacting an
yeah,
actual. Did you contact or you mentioned about like getting not experience, but just getting the advice from psychologists and mental health experts to help you deal with. I mean, I just cannot imagine the right. It's the mental health aspect of it. Can you describe what do you think
I
people?
think I had a few anxiety attacks,
Hmm.
panic attacks. Once I told work I was transitioning, but I didn't do it straight away. So I went through that process, like Kate had that sort of issues like Caitlyn Jenner. So it's just having people around you to talk to about that, and obviously speaking to a counsellor first before I spoke to a psychiatrist about transitioning. What I wanted to do, just talking about childhood and other associated things, just so making sure you're doing the right thing.
Do you think some people in your experience change their mind, or do you know? Remember how you were saying that some
Oh
people
yeah,
automatically know?
I've read stories where people have changed their mind, or I've heard a story of someone had gender reassignment surgery, and then sadly, a few months later or a year later, they kill themselves, sadly, for whatever reason. So I think you don't know why and you can't judge, but I think mental health's important, making appropriate decisions, especially around surgery, whether it's right for you or not. And you almost feel like you have to change all of your body to fit in with society's expectations. And I know a lot of trans people just can't afford that, or they just want to live as a woman because they're transitioning later in life, or just can't afford all the surgery, or they just may only get breast surgery. So I don't think society fully understands all the issues we face day to day, or making those bigger decisions as well.
When society can be very judgmental, right?
Of course,
So
yeah.
how do I mean, society's judgmental no matter who you are, and
Oh,
if you're,
absolutely, over the phone.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how
So
do you deal with,
often,
how do we deal in
often,
general? Yeah, regardless of transgender issues or not, how do we create or build that backbone so we don't succumb to the judgments, and the criticisms?
just calling it out, like something. So, can I speak to Melissa when you ring up and you're Melissa? Like, are you calling on behalf of Melissa? Because you still got a masculine voice. Well, there are some women that have deep masculine voices, not a lot, but you do hear a few now and then. That it's just, yeah, just people aren't aware. So I mean, you go, I am Melissa, and you just don't take it personally. I am Melissa. But it's
Hmm.
like, you go somewhere and the security guard says, oh, I got to get out if you're at a pub or a club or whatever. Come on, guys, get out. And said, you wouldn't, there's ladies there as well. You're calling everyone guys. I know it's a bit of an, seems to be an American thing, calling everyone guys, but for
Hmm.
trans people, it's sort of a bit offensive. You fight so hard just to live full time, and then you cop that as well. And you try and point it out to people that they're just their unconscious bias. They just don't want to hear it, or they just don't care. They're doing the job. They don't want to know. But it's just, society's still got a long way to go around language and inclusive language as well.
Well, and that's why I noticed some of the children's books. It's they are conscious, and it's I know someone who wrote a book, and it's like the amazing bat and herself, himself, itself, and that and it's a new. I think it's fairly new, but
Yeah.
I think the most challenging thing is how do you like you said, we're kind of backward. I mean, we're not there fully yet.
No.
Because why do you think that is? Why are we society so resistant in embracing something? Is it because they just don't
It,
understand it, or?
understand, acceptance, their own upbringing, education, their own unconscious bias. So you're challenging people's bias, thinking makes them feel uncomfortable. So,
Yeah, that bias is really, and that upbringing. Because I just
yeah,
realized that, when some people, they don't even realize that the child doesn't even have their own opinion. It's
no,
just an inherited opinion from what
yeah,
they think is
yeah,
true.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's just their own background, upbringing, and who they are. So anything that's uncomfortable, people don't like, or makes them feel uncomfortable. They may not
Do,
even realise they've got that
They
bias.
don't. They don't. Do you think schools can help? I mean, I know it's such a fine line because the whole right, religious versus politics, but what about gender? I mean, how do you think that they should take that upon themselves since it is a education, right? It's a responsibility to educate the youth. But do you think that would
Yeah,
be
I know there's more programs in schools and high schools here around gender and gender identity, and as that goes on, I think the next generation will have a better understanding. I think a lot of the younger generation understands. Some still get a negative reaction from, but I think most are pretty okay with it. It's You just get a bit tired of this the personal questions or the silly questions. Oh, you have, or this state the obvious. Oh, you haven't had the Adam's apple shaved yet. Well, why did you even mention it?
Oh my gosh, that's pretty rude.
People just don't think. They're just not even
They,
aware.
you know what, they don't think. It's kind of like when someone dies and they don't know the right thing to say. Do you think it's just out of either being unaware or maybe
Not being
not?
not being aware.
Yeah. Have you been, I know you go to different businesses. I'm wondering, you would be a perfect person to go to schools and educate. Yeah, because I'm
It's
sure that
just
you're,
trying to get into schools and like
are
with
they
COVID and
resistant?
that. With COVID and that, it's just sort of trying to share a story, and then it's almost like you're starting to speak and try and get some consulting work. So you just try and put yourself out there and market yourself to do that. But yeah, getting in schools is hard, I think, and there's still that bias there, I think, as well. Like I went to like a library and told them what I did, and the girl said, "Oh, yeah, I'm pushing for them to do stuff in June for Pride Month, so put you down as a speaker." But it's just getting your foot in the door. Like,
Well,
it's
libraries,
still,
yeah, libraries are really good too. Or even, do you folks have like Rotary groups or
yeah, Rotary groups and stuff.
groups?
Yeah, it's getting your foot in the door because it's all
Yeah.
new here, and Australia's very conservative, and or they want it for free. They don't want to pay. So somebody wanted years ago wanted me to go to America, but they didn't want to pay me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, can you just, and then the airfare is a lot, but we need to see value in people who will
Mm.
enlighten and educate, right? Because how can we move forward without the knowledge that is needed?
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, so you learn to stop doing things for free or valuing yourself more. So it means if I'm going interstate, I have to charge a fee to cover your costs so they get someone else for free or cheaper locally. So you miss out on all that stuff, I guess. So, but it's just the way it is. But yeah, I guess, yeah, people in LGBTI QA plus community are not necessarily valued that way as opposed to someone who's a normal cisgender male, female, might speak at events regularly. So that's another barrier to break down. And
It's the possibilities. You know how a lot of people have sponsors, and so these
yeah,
organizations who that is their goal, right? To educate. I was on a
yeah,
panel, United Not Divided, and it was sponsored by the LGBTQIA. I guess I didn't know there's like a foundation or some organization, and what they were doing is educating people. And so I just realized we need more of that, and instead of just
yeah.
having a panel discussion, actually bring people globally, globally to speak about the changes that, I mean, it should be mandated, it should be
Yeah.
something that,
Mm.
because otherwise, how do we even, like you said, move forward if people remain in the
Mm.
dark, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So any, let's see, what's the question that you were asked the most?
Us the most. Not so not so much now, but early on, people would ask about if I was openly bi, whether I'd have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Or people would ask my flatmate, has he had the snip, or they'd say he instead of she. Um, things like that. Yeah, so you still get asked questions, occasionally around surgery or whatever. So yeah, people generally aren't so bad. It's just more the stares and the glares and the snide comments, calling you dolls or whatever in a derogatory way instead of like we might call you dolls, g'day dolls, but not in a derogatory way, if that makes sense. So it's just combating all that sort of passive aggressive behaviour,
Which is very
microaggressive behaviour.
disrespectful, right? We were
But there's
talking
a lot
about
of, yeah,
that.
but there's a lot of that microaggressive behaviour. You probably pick up on it yourself day to day in some situations. Just all that microaggression, passive aggressive behaviour.
And what do you think is the best way to handle it if someone is, facing that now in a,
Oh, there's stairs and glares. You just keep walking. Occasionally, you pull people out. So stand up for yourself.
well, I'm sure the best thing is not to engage, and that's what I
Yeah.
think little kids are told, right? If I had an 8-year-old and this little girl keeps harassing him, and it's like, what do you say? No matter what situation, if you're not being respected or you are bullied, supposedly that's right. Because as soon as you engage, that's what they
Yeah.
want.
That's what I want. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm just so impressed. I met you through Destin Huckius. I'm so glad I reached out to you on LinkedIn. How can people reach you and any other events coming up? Because I know you did the International Women's Day, right, speaking, and you did something in person though in Australia. It had I know there's a lot of people. What was that recent event?
So you can find me on Facebook, Melissa Griffiths, or the real Melissa Griffiths, or my Melissa Griffiths transgender supermodel advice page. One of the pages I set up years ago when Facebook used to block me sharing articles about trans issues. They don't now, but set up that page, and Melissa Loves Brides and other pages. My website, www.melissagriffiths.com.au. You can even just Google me and find me. I'm on Twitter at Melissa Racing, or Instagram at Melissa C. Griffiths, and I'm on there as well.
Well, thank you so much. And I think everyone needs to be more open-minded. We need more people who are supportive and just educating society in general, right? Because if, like you said, we're going to be in the dark, the biases are going to continue, but it's up to us. It's like a social responsibility to help everyone, right? To have everyone deserves. We're talking about a sense of a sense of belonging, no matter what their belief systems are.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I need to visit you one day in Australia, and you have to come to
You
Hawaii
do.
one day.
Yeah, that's
And
absolutely,
yes, since you guys are open now, right? We were just talking about Australia
We're
being
open,
open.
yeah.
Okay,
Definitely.
we'll have to plan that. And thank you so much. Let's keep in touch, and I will see you
I
soon.
will.
Okay,
See you
take
soon,
care.
Karen.
Okay, bye.
Bye.